I would like to begin by welcoming all of you to our 8th annual Boston State College celebration and presentation of our Education for Service Awards. My name is Michael Taylor, and like many of you, I'm a proud graduate of Boston State College, and I have the pleasure of serving as the president of the Urban College of Boston today. Last year at this time, I was honored to receive one of these awards. It was a special night for me and my family and my friends. The great education I received at Boston State College, coupled by the compassionate personal support, was instrumental in launching me into a career of human services and education. As the first in my family to graduate from college, it is my privilege to support other first-generation college students pursue their dreams every day at Urban College. At Urban, we try to emulate the personal caring and support that I and you received at Boston State. Boston State's motto, Education for Service, is especially meaningful to all of us. It has shaped our personal and our professional lives. I'm also pleased to host this year's event, introduce to you this year's honorees. Let me take a moment to thank the Boston State College Steering Committee who organized this program. I also want to acknowledge the previous Education for Service Award winners with us, and if they wouldn't mind standing, I'd appreciate that. Jerry Burke, Patricia Cronin, Carol D'Souza, John Flores, Marie Fox, Mary Grasser O'Neill, Selma Sachs, and Peter Safras. I would also like to thank Robin Gora, the Alumni Affairs Coordinator, and her fellow alumni office colleagues for their active engagement with tonight's event. This gathering has had some unintended outcomes, both several years ago, and I'm sure it might have some tonight. At the 3rd annual Boston State Celebration 5 years ago, I was about to get a drink in the other room when I ran into one of my classmates from 1973. And so after we introduced one another to each other, we kind of caught up about what we were up to and what we were doing for work. And I said, well, what are you doing? And she said, I'm unemployed. And I said, that's really tragic. This is right in the middle of the economic crisis of the world. Not surprising she was unemployed. And she says, what are you doing? And I said, well, I'm working for Governor Patrick. I'm the Workforce Development Director, and ironically, one of the things I'm responsible for is unemployment. So how are you been faring with the unemployment system? She said, not very well. I said, okay. I said, what's the matter? She goes, they denied me, and I believe that I'm eligible for unemployment. She said, when did they deny you? She said, over a year ago. I said, what are you doing tomorrow morning at 10 o'clock? She says, not much. I said, I'm unemployed. I said, okay. I said, come on to my office at 10 o'clock, and we'll just see if we can give this another look. So sure enough, she came in at 10 o'clock the next morning. I met with her for a few minutes, got her materials, went over to the head of the Unemployment Commission, and asked him to take a look at it right away while she and I waited in my office. Well, sure enough, he came back. I knew what his answer was when he came and opened the door. He looked embarrassed, and I said, bingo. And he said, I really apologize. She really is eligible. We made a mistake. And so I said, okay. So we explained what was going to happen. This is this time of the year. So over the next 3 weeks, she received 52 checks totaling $31,677.27. That was a year's worth of unemployment. And she also was eligible for unemployment for the next year, because during that period of time, there was a 2-year unemployment extension because of the federal government's support of it. So she had 2 years of unemployment. And as the economy got better, she was able to get a job and move on with her life. We also changed the policy at the Unemployment Commission, so that particular problem would not happen again. So you never know. You never know what's going to happen at this kind of an event. That particular happening happened to provide her with something like $64,000 over the course of 2 years. So it was a nice outcome. Unfortunately, our event co-host, Chancellor Motley, is unable to be with us this evening. He's not feeling very well. And I know, I'm sure he's very disappointed because he very much enjoys this event. He very much wants to engage with all of us in a personal way, as well as a professional way as the co-host of this event. And we have with us the UMass Boston Provost and Vice Chancellor for Academic Affairs, Winston Langley, and a former member, by the way, of the Boston State College faculty, which is no surprise to us that he has the distinguished honor of being the provost of this university. As the Provost and Vice Chancellor of Academic Affairs, Provost Langley is a senior administrator in charge of advancing the University of Massachusetts Boston's academic mission and the quality of its intellectual life. He oversees all college's academic departments, research centers, institutes, and libraries. Professor Langley, as I mentioned, is a former Boston State College faculty member. Again, not a surprise to us. He has served the university in a number of senior administrative roles and is a professor of political science and international relations since 1982. Provost Langley is a scholar with a rich and diverse academic background as a seasoned administrator. He's been instrumental in defining and developing UMass Boston's identity as a student-centered, urban, public research university with a teaching soul. Dr. Langley is the author of several books. He earned his Bachelor of Arts from the Atlantic Union College, a Master of Arts from Howard University, and his PhD from Suffolk University. Additionally, Provost Langley is a wonderful and genuine champion for the Boston State legacy. He is a living embodiment of Boston State's motto, education for service. Ladies and gentlemen, our friend, our champion, and our provost, Winston Langley.
Thank you for your wonderful introduction and welcoming efforts for the evening. Good evening to everyone. Good evening. It is my pleasure to be here with you, so many former students and colleagues from Boston State College. On behalf of the Chancellor, Chancellor Motley, it's my honor to welcome you to Boston's great public university, the University of Massachusetts, Boston. Chancellor Motley has asked me to extend his regrets to you. As mentioned just a while ago, Michael, he always looks forward to this event. It is one that defined the beginnings of his efforts here in 2007, and he regards it as part of a tradition for himself as well as for the university. Tonight we mark the 8th annual Boston State College celebration and the 7th anniversary of the Education for Service Awards. Let me extend the Chancellor's appreciation to the members of the Boston State College Steering Committee for their voluntary leadership and for their efforts in putting this event together. Thanks to them, we have established what he understands to be a meaningful tradition. I would like to follow Michael's efforts to welcome a few other parties, namely Massachusetts, the University of Massachusetts Boston's Board of Visitors members who are with us. We are joined by Chair of the Board, Selma Sachs. Also, we have as members Art Bowes, Jim Conway, Marty Courage, John Flores, Amit Hayes, Amit Panodia, I think he may have left for a while, and Mary Gusser O'Neill. Did she have a chance to join us, of course? Allow me to recognize Board of Visitors member Maria McCarthy, who also serves on the Alumni Association Board. I would likewise like to extend a warm welcome to the family and friends of the award recipients. Andy DiPaolo, Tom Feenan, and the late Hank Mahoney. With us are Tom's wife, Donna Feenan. As well, we have his son, Michael, and daughter-in-law, Jessica. Additionally, let me acknowledge Andy's wife, Jody, who has come in with us, I understand, from California. And from Virginia, we also might welcome Hank's wife, Carol, and his daughters, Denise Rauch, Chris Anderson, Michelle Salini, and Susan Cochran. Unfortunately, our honoree, Professor of Physical Education, Edith DeAngelis, is under the weather and not able to join us. Alumnus Tom Riley will accept the award on her behalf. Every year we gather, and in that gathering there is a special feeling of warmth and pride among Boston State alumni, faculty, and staff. Just as the college had what we understand as an immense impact on your lives, its legacy also continues here at the University of Massachusetts and beyond. While its history is formally recognized in the Boston State College room next door, the college's influence can also be seen in the College of Education and Human Development, in the College of Nursing and Health Sciences, and in the Public Affairs program in the McCormick Graduate School for Policy and Global Studies. This is part of the expression of 625 Huntington Avenue. It also lives in the classrooms and offices of this campus, where former faculty and staff and their commitment to public higher education serve our students. This year, as the University of Massachusetts Boston celebrates its 50th anniversary, we're taking stock of our history and the strengths of our major academic enterprise. Here with you this evening, I am reminded of the important role that Boston State has had in contributing to the expanding efforts of our academic life, especially in its programming. I mentioned nursing, we can mention exercise science, we can add continuing education. I'm also reminded of the student-centered education that was the focus of its faculty and the hallmark of the university today. I'm also reminded, and one of the single greatest aspects of Boston State College and its legacy, its graduates. And I would like to refer not just to the graduates, but to the alma mater. Graduates with their voices of command. Graduates with knowledge and wisdom and fervor for right. Graduates with faith in the good and the just. That alma mater is the alma mater of the University of Massachusetts, Boston. In your professional lives and in your community involvement, you bring the knowledge, the skills, the voice of command in what you've learned in Huntington Avenue. And you have expressed it in many, many fields of endeavor. For many, the call to service is one that you have embraced as a career, illustrated aptly by what was done for this unemployed person. And you dedicated yourself to improving the quality of life in so many cities and towns in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts and beyond. The Education for Service Award recognizes those who have made outstanding contributions in their field. Recipients, like the ones we honor this evening, truly embody the college's motto of nobility: education for service. What else is worth but education for service, unless we want to rust, as Tennyson said, in disuse? I would like to congratulate tonight's award winners: Professor of Physical Education Edith DeAngelis, and alumni Andy DiPaolo, Tom Feenan, and the late Henry Mahoney. Your accomplishments and your dedication to serving the community bring honor to your alma mater. It brings honor to those who will be members of the community for an indefinite period into the future. So think of your contributions as having a life of its own. Finally, I would like to express my thanks to those who have contributed to Boston State's Scholarship Fund, which will support the University of Massachusetts Boston students. Thanks to your generosity, this permanently endowed fund now has a market value of $36,000. The first scholarship will be awarded this spring. Through your gifts to this fund, you not only pay tribute to the alma mater, you help ensure the future generations of learners will have access to opportunities denied others. Thank you for being here tonight and for helping us to honor Boston State College. I encourage you to continue your involvement with the University of Massachusetts Boston as we further the college's proud legacy that started in 2625 Huntington Avenue. It is one that I think the world will come to recognize specially. Education for service is the best and the noblest of traditions. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Provost Langley, and I also want to extend our collective thanks to you and Chancellor Motley and the entire University of Boston staff and community for welcoming all of us, the Boston State alumni, to be members of this community, this event this evening, the room next door, the scholarship you just referenced a moment ago, and I'm sure more things to come in the future. I also want to congratulate you on the extraordinary success that you can't not witness when you drive into this campus. If you miss it, you shouldn't be driving anymore. It's the new science building and the new academic building and the next academic building that'll be built after that, the addition of the Edward Kennedy Institute, which is right over there, and Chancellor Motley and I had a chance to peek at that just a week or so ago. It's an extraordinary facility. The actual Senate chambers in its actual size is in that building. So I encourage you all to see it at some point when it opens up next March. Again, it's a part of this community. It's now my pleasure to begin the presentations of Education and Service Awards, and I'd like to introduce to you our first honoree. As you mentioned, as Provost just mentioned, Edith is unable to come this evening, and Tom Riley, her student, and the person who nominated her for this award will be accepting the award on her behalf. He mentioned to me just a few minutes ago how incredibly disappointed she was that she couldn't be here, and he'll get into more of that when he mentions, when he goes into his remarks following this presentation. Inspired by her family's deep commitment to helping others, Professor DeAngelis spent 39 years as a teacher, 39 years. During her tenure as a professor at physical education at Boston State and later here at UMass Boston, she educated generations of students from diverse backgrounds. In her, they found a deeply dedicated educator and role model. From her, they gained knowledge about her field and life lessons that would be importance of service to others. Beyond her professional obligations, she made service to others her life's mission. For 73 years, imagine that, for 73 years, she has volunteered her considerable talent and time to those in need. With an incredible energy and generosity of spirit that knows no limits, she has been there for everyone, her family, her friends, her neighbors, in the city of Boston, the numerous causes at the state, regional, and national level. As a visionary leader, community activist, and committed collaborator, she worked for decades to improve the quality of her native East Boston and served as commissioner of the Boston Conservation Commission. Through her efforts, she helped realize a vision for parks and open spaces and earned the City of Boston's Lifetime Achievement Award for environmental leadership. This is just one of the many accolades she has won for her efforts over the years. Even today, in her 8th decade, I'm glad she's not here to hear me say that. I grew up with 5 sisters. They'd be whacking me in the back of the head if they heard me say that. She continues to actively support the volunteer work of the residents in her retirement home. Through her outstanding contributions in the field of education and exceptional commitment to civic engagement, she personifies Boston State College's Education for Service motto and serves as an exemplar of the college's legacy. In recognition of her distinguished service and leadership, the University of Massachusetts at Boston is proud to present her, with Tom, as accepting it, the Boston State College Education for Service Award. Tom, would you please come up and join us at the podium? We'll do a picture and then we'll have this. Why don't you grab that, and the 2 of us will get between you. How's that?
Oh, okay.
Unless you want to do it a different way. Get rid of these things. There we go. Yeah, there we go.
Why don't you just shift just a little bit so I can see some of it?
Okay.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you. I want to take your speech from you. That'd be a problem.
I know. You already took most of it. I hope I do Dr. DeAngelis honor with this. Again, I'm Tom Riley. I was a student of Dr. DeAngelis's, or Dr. D, as we affectionately called her. She does want to say that she really is very disappointed, but she is in her 7th week of shingles, which was compounded by a serious reaction to the medication, which was supposed to help, but did not. So she has now become an advocate for people with shingles. So I'm going to read her words verbatim now that she sent me today. So, first of all, I will be an advocate to try to prevent everyone in this room from ever getting the shingles. Check with your doctor, and if you can get a shot, get it. So it's a great honor and a humbling experience to receive the Boston State College Education for Service Award. Even more surprising, that a student would find me after our classes together 30 years. This means more to me than you can imagine, and there's more people in this room than me who are here to honor her. Boston State was family. Our students and faculty were great. We were devastated with the loss of a great college, but happy that Boston State is still alive with such programs, and UMass Boston is doing well with the students. To that end, this is Dr. DeAngelis speaking, I would like to make an announcement. In 1993, my 2 sisters and I established a scholarship fund as a living memorial to our beloved parents and aunt. Terry Cochran, sitting over here to my left, my colleague at Boston State, not only served as a founder, but also faithfully served as a treasurer for 16 years of the Edith G. Colatuano and Amelia and Henry DeAngelis Scholarship Trust Fund. We are in the final stages of terminating the scholarship fund after awarding 100 scholarships for outstanding students who also distinguished themselves for their leadership and volunteer service. We are grateful to all our benefactors who have made this possible. The funds will now be divided between 3 nonprofit agencies, especially for scholarships. The named scholarship will be an endowed scholarship in perpetuity to the University of Massachusetts, Boston, St. Joseph's Indian School, Chamberlain, South Dakota, and Brooksby Village, Peabody, Mass. Our tradition of giving will continue until long after we are gone, and that outstanding scholars will be able to launch their degree programs and make significant contributions to society before and following graduation. And that's the end of her remarks. So I just want to just tell a quick personal story about Dr. DeAngelis. She inspired her students. She provided us, it was really good because most of us were there to get better education so that we could get a better job or possibly a career. And so she gave us the opportunity with practical knowledge about exactly what we would face in the recreation community and how we would work in the recreation community. But she also offered us a bigger direction and bigger guidance. And the example of this is one day in class, she says, okay, I can teach you these specific things and help you deal with communities, deal with individuals, deal with programs, deal with planning, but I can't teach you everything. So what you need to do is you need to have a solid core of principles so that when you encounter unexpected challenges or unknown entities, you have something that you can base your response to. And I stand here before you as an example of that. I went to Boston State to become a gym teacher. And I was a gym teacher for 2-3 years. Then I ran private organizations, nonprofit organizations dealing with youth and dealing with recreation. Now I work for a global, nonprofit education, health, and research company. And in the past week, in my roles, I've had to deal with how do we deal with Ebola, and how do we respond to Ebola? How do we deal with the new technologies? How do we work with social media in the way addressing people? So, you know, I have to thank Dr. DeAngelis for that advice a long time ago, because I don't know anything about Ebola or about the new technologies that we're dealing with. Those are new things for me, but I have principles to rely on. I have the principles to rely on, and I use those principles to this day. And I want to thank Dr. DeAngelis for that, and I want to congratulate her for this award. It's well-deserved, and she's a special person. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Tom, and please pass on to Edith that we appreciate your continuing her education for service by insisting that we get shingles shots, so thank you. I had shingles, get the shingle shot. Our next recipient is the late Henry Patrick Mahoney. Hank's wife, Carol, will accept the Education Service Award in honor of her husband's life, in honor of his memory. Navy veteran, history teacher, CIA administrative officer. These are just a few of the many positions Hank Mahoney held in his distinguished career in public service to the Commonwealth of Massachusetts and the nation. Passionate, goal-oriented, driven by a deep sense of commitment to community, he came to Boston State in 1959, determined to make the most of his undergraduate education. Balancing the responsibilities of academics, marriage, and parenting 2 young children, he also served as class president for 4 years. Following a brief tenure as a history teacher in Rockland High School, Hank found his life's calling as a member of the Central Intelligence Agency. Beginning in 1966, and for the next 30 years, he put our country first, applying his courage, his considerable talent, leadership skills, and intellect to protect America's national security interests. A true patriot, he traveled the world in service of this most important mission, helping our nation's leaders understand the potential dangers from ever-changing political, social, economic, technological, and military environment. Along the way, he gained the respect of his colleagues and his superiors, earning a reputation as a role model and a mentor. Today, the CIA operates the Hank Mahoney Support College, which provides training for support officers. This college stands as an appropriately named tribute to his legacy of service and outstanding leadership. Through his contributions in the fields of military service, public education, and national security, Hank personifies Boston State College's Education for Service motto and serves as an exemplar to the college's legacy. In recognition of this distinguished service and leadership, the University of Massachusetts Boston is proud to recognize Henry Patrick Mahoney posthumously with the Boston State College Education for Service Award. Carol, please join us here for this presentation. Great, thank you. Oh, I'm taking her speech.
Can't take that. My mind is okay, but it gets a little sketchy. First, I feel I have the need to thank the 1959 Director of Admissions at Boston State Teachers College, as it was called then, for taking a chance on Henry. I knew Henry at that time, and I know what his grades were, and they were not stellar. That was probably because he spent most of his junior and senior high school days in the movies. If Henry were here tonight, I can assure you that his acceptance of this award would be far more entertaining and colorful. And while I don't know what Henry would say, I am sure he would be quick to point out that Boston State was where he got the desire to learn and the desire to serve. The lifelong friends that he's made at Boston State, some of whom are here tonight, provided him with both motivation and a challenge. And I know he would want to thank them for not only their friendship, but also for the many days they spent debating, or was that arguing, one thing or another. As it said, in 1963, Henry started teaching at Rockland High School. But after a few years of our family growing and his paycheck not, he answered an ad in the Boston Globe and accepted a job at the Central Intelligence Agency. Over the next 30 years, his job took him and us to Thailand, England, Austria, and Taiwan. And while we at home were busy learning what 220 voltage does to 110 appliances, not good, he was busy establishing a distinguished record of achievement wherever we went. Sorry. He earned his reputation as an innovator, inspiring leader, and an incomparable mentor. He provided guidance, direction, and sometimes honest, okay, blunt advice to junior and senior officers as well as government officials. At the agency, Henry could probably be best described as a leader's leader. His genuine concern for the welfare of others made him a model for others to emulate. And for years after his retirement, we had a steady stream of agency officers coming by the house seeking his advice and career guidance. To that end, the agency named their training academy the Mahoney Center for Support, Tradecraft, and Leadership Development. And this will sit in that school. You have to help me.
You're doing great.
I'm doing great. Despite his world travels, Henry was a Boston boy at heart and a teacher at his core. He always thought he had the best of days when he had the opportunity to walk through the corridors and speak to the rank and file. He always said he got his best information from them. And if they had an issue, he did his very best to resolve it for him. To his family, he was Hank, Pops, Dad, Grampy. And at home, he was the very best. I'm doing okay.
You're doing great. You're doing great. You're going to be great.
For all that Henry was able to achieve, he recognized the fact that he was only able to achieve what he did because somebody provided him with a steady hand and took a chance on him. And in 1959, that was Boston State Teachers College. And that's him speaking to us now. So it is with thanks and honor that we accept this award in Henry's behalf. And I know he would be truly humbled that his own thought him worthy to receive it.
You did a great job. You really did. Carol, I told you you'd do a great job, and you did. So I want to add that your husband did an extraordinary service to his country, but you also sacrificed, as your three daughters did as well. In behalf of all of us, I really want to say thank you to you and your daughters for your sacrifice. And in the motto of Boston State, service to others, so thank you. And by the way, there's many of us who went to Boston State who didn't have stellar high school grades. And you happen to be looking at one of them right now. I'm sure a few of my high school teachers said, he's doing what now? I know they're thinking that right now, but anyway. It is now my honor to introduce Tom Feenan. To the proud Boston State College alumnus, Thomas Feenan. From your term as president of the student government to your current roles as an accomplished business entrepreneur and active community leader, you have brought exceptional skill and leadership, passion to a singular mission, service to others. Known for your forward thinking, honesty, integrity, ability to navigate change, you have brought innovation and high standards to your commitment to giving back. In the early career as a teacher at Boston High School, you were part of the dynamic team that initiated and implemented Boston's first, and probably one of the nation's first, work-study high schools. Putting people first, you established the Feenan Income Tax Service in 1969 and have grown the business to be the largest single income tax office in the East Coast, serving more than 3,000 clients. With the later additions of ATA Insurance Agency and Feenan Financial Services, you have helped thousands of individuals and businesses to secure their incomes and plan for their futures. Through your focus on close personal attention to your customers' needs, you've earned their respect and accolades from your industry peers. For nearly 4 decades, you have served the citizens of the South Shore and the Commonwealth of Massachusetts through a multitude of civic engagements. Recipients of the state's public assistance, residents of Quincy, students at Cathedral High School and Milton Public Schools, and leadership of Quincy College, and here at UMass Boston. These are among the countless number of individuals whose lives you have touched through your service as a member and officer of numerous nonprofit and educational organizations. Amongst your many awards and recognitions, you were most recently named the Quinn Essential Person of the Year by Quincy College, where you have volunteered for 30 years. Today, you serve as the chairperson of its Board of Governors. Through your outstanding contributions in the fields of education, business, and civic engagement, you personify Boston State College's Education for Service motto and serve as an exemplar of the college's legacy. In recognition of your distinguished service and leadership, the University of Massachusetts at Boston is proud to present you with the Boston State College Education for Service Award. Tom, please step forward.
Thank you. All right. Is there room between us? Do the best you can, Harry.
Thank you.
Wow. I actually did prepare something. I hope I can get through it. To comment on some of the other speakers, and in particular Carol, I too was very thankful to the person who got me into Boston State. Anyway, I am deeply appreciative of this award. Boston State and now the University of Mass at Boston have had a powerful influence on my life. Before I get into my talk, I would be remiss if I didn't thank all the wonderful faculty, staff, and administrators and members of the Board of Governors of Quincy College who came here tonight to help celebrate this award with me. I am so thankful to you all for being here. To my own office staff, I have to thank the several employees who took the effort to be here, to be with us this evening. And lastly, to my family who have given of their time and allowed me to play a part not only at the University of Mass Boston, but also at Quincy College. In particular to my wife, Donna, and my son, Michael, also a product of the University of Mass Boston, and his wife, Jessica. Thank you for being there for me. I have to tell you a little bit about myself. My mom never graduated from high school. My father did graduate from high school, but he was a milkman. And they insisted I was going to college, even though I wasn't really a good candidate. It was not open for debate. In fact, to digress just for a second, and I shouldn't even say this with my son here, but I recall when Peter Mead was a broadcaster on WBZ radio, he once broadcast, we both went to Cathedral High School, that the only one who was suspended more than he was Tom Feenan. I always thanked him for that. And the suspension at that time was sitting in front of the statue of St. Joseph, and all the kids would walk by and laugh at you. Anyway, I was going to be the first Feenan to get a college education. They didn't care where I was going, but I was going. The only problem was we had no money for college, so I had to find a school that I could afford. Boston State fit that bill. Boston State would be the college, and education would be my calling. In my early years, I was the product of parochial schools, as I alluded to before. I had 13 years of sister schools. I have to tell you, my first day at Boston State, it was a real awakening for me. I was in the World Civilization class with Mr. Foley, and he asked a question. I raised my hand along with everyone else in the class, and I went, "Sister, sister." At which point, Mr. Foley stopped the class and informed me that although Boston State was predominantly Catholic and rather parochial, the faculty would prefer to be recognized as either Mr. or Mrs. So that is how my college career started. My first year and a half was a bit rocky. I almost flunked out of school. I was having a lot of trouble learning how to study. Comments by Elliot Ernest, my English prof, that everything I wrote was trite, verbose, redundant, seemed to set the tone for my future. After the first semester of my second year, I was failing history, which was my major. At this point, I was assigned to the head of the history department, Dr. Larry Bernard, and I thought my goose was cooked. Suddenly, it all clicked. His dramatic teaching methods, as you may recall, inspired me. The first time he jumped up on a desk to fire down at the start of the First World War just convinced me I was in the right class. I finished his class with a 3.5 average. My last 2 years, I finished on the dean's list. I got involved in student government and fell in love with it. I ran for office and got elected as president of the Student Government Association. And I realized I had a worth, that I could do things, and I wanted to give. I owe my training to some of the educators, just to remind you of them. Dr. Larry Bernard, Mo Foley, as he was affectionately called, Ralph Ladd, Ed Zaleskis, Bob Bond, who is a sweet man, Mr. Hauge, Ma Flynn, Dean Kelly, or as we called them affectionately, One-Eyed Jack, and Alice Linehan, the Dorchester Maiden, and so many more. It is because of these fine men and women that I realized I had received a wonderful gift, the gift of an education. As I matured, I realized that it was imperative of me to help pay it forward. I decided to get involved at Cathedral High School and served 10 years on their advisory board. I got involved at the University of Mass, Boston. I got involved in the alumni in the Boston State Alumni Group, and finally on their Board of Visitors. And at the same time, I got involved with a great school called Quincy College, just across the bay here, and got involved in the College Courses, Inc., which was actually the founding mechanism for the college. And then I got involved in their Board of Governors, and now I'm proud to say I'm the chairman of their Board of Governors. All of these schools have a common thread. All are first-generation, college-educated kids from the middle-class areas of the city of Boston and beyond. And they're going to be the leaders in the next few years. We must continue to support these types of schools. Without our support, they will shrivel and perish. I ask you to continue to make your annual gifts to these types of institutions so that they can flourish and continue as we see them today in this fine school of higher education. I have to tell you, I was blown away today. I got to tour the science building with several people in the audience, and it was just incredible what this facility has for our students today. So I encourage you to support, give of your time, but also give of your treasure. That's the important thing. They need you. And lastly, Merry Christmas, and thank you all.
I know that you were concerned about admitting that you were suspended in front of your son, but I just want you to know he was taking notes, exactly what you said during that part of it. I also understand the issue of, I had also had 12 years of nuns. And I went and I found every male teacher I could find at Boston State College to make up the difference. I also had 5 sisters, so I was a little tired. It is now my pleasure to introduce to you Andy DiPaolo. To a proud Boston State College alumnus, Andy DiPaolo. For more than 4 decades, you have devoted your professional life to the field of education. Through your career, you have impacted students of all ages and helped provide knowledge to countless people around the world. From teaching elementary school students in Daly City, California, to teaching just this morning, I might add, an online class in artificial intelligence to an aspiring computer engineer in Bangladesh. For the past 25 years, you've been at the forefront of one of the major innovations in higher education, distance learning. As executive director and founder of the Stanford Center for Professional Development and the senior associated dean of the engineering school at Stanford University, you led one of the largest university lifelong education organizations and distant learning educational networks in the United States, delivering graduate and non-credit programs to technical professionals, managers, and executives throughout the world. In that role, you have earned an international reputation as a thought leader in your field. An idea generator, a natural collaborator, you've led a team that developed an award-winning Stanford Online, the first system to use video technology to provide academic courses on the internet. Driven by your commitment to deliver quality education programs and providing exceptional support to students and faculty, you spearheaded the effort to create the world's first online graduate engineering program. Under your direction, Stanford developed Stanford Engineering Everywhere, which provides online courses to educators and learners around, again, the world. Along the way, you've mentored others in the field and served on numerous national and international boards. You have advised universities, corporations, and governmental agencies on a strategic way of technology to address the education and training needs and the development of new models for distributed learning. Your pioneer work has earned accolades for you and for Stanford University. Those include, among others, your introduction to the Distance Learning Hall of Fame for lifetime contributions to the field, and the appointment as a fellow of the European Distance and E-Learning Network. Through your outstanding contributions in the field of continuing education and distance learning, you've personified Boston State College's education for service, motto and serve as an exemplar to the college's legacy. In recognition of your distinguished service and leadership, the University of Massachusetts at Boston is proud to present you with the Boston State College Education for Service Award. Andy, please step forward. Thank you.
Tom, you're going to be a hard act to follow. I'm telling you. Last night, when I arrived, I had dinner with my sisters who are here. And they reminded me of something I always tell them when they're presenting or saying something, to follow the 3 B's. Be humble, be brief, and be seated. So that will be a hallmark of what I'm going to do. I'm a former university faculty member, so I can speak for 5 minutes or I can speak for 5 hours. Fortunately for you, it will be the former. Those are my sisters applauding. Actually, I have to say there's an interesting lineage of my connections with Boston State and UMass Boston that go deep into my family. My Aunt Jean White is a graduate of Boston State Teachers College, class of 1958. My sister Linda is a graduate of Boston State College, class of 1970. My sister Janet has worked until recently retired as a member of the UMass Boston library staff here. And her husband Mark was at the library, and he's a UMB graduate, class of 1990. Right. And it continues because my cousin Brian, Jean's son, is a member of the biology department. He's a faculty member here, and he's a provost fellow for technology and teaching, which is the field that I follow. So I'm delighted that Brian has done that. So lots of connections back to Boston State and UMass Boston. Now, as I look out the window here, 2 miles from here is where I lived, in Fields Corner in Dorchester. I'm a product of the Boston Public Schools. And as Tom and others have mentioned, and my colleague John Flores, who also lived in Dorchester, a good friend, that Boston State provided us families who had not much money an opportunity for education. And it was an extraordinary experience for me and set for me, I think, a foundation that allowed me to do some of the things that I've been able to do in my career. Quite special place. I didn't realize it at the time. None of us do, right? When you're an 18 or 20-year-old, you just don't know. But there were some things that were going on there that, in reflection and thinking about that, as to what I've been doing at Stanford for the last 25 years. Stanford is a unique university. It's quite a special place. But some of the things that I was able to accomplish at Stanford was a direct result of some of the things I learned at Boston State. First, it allowed me to go on in my career and get advanced degrees, allowed me then to work at other universities. I was at Boston University before I went to Stanford. But in thinking about the students who were there, the students who are at Boston State and the students at Stanford, there's some really strong similarities, and also in the faculty members. I'll tell you about that in a minute, but I wanted to say something to Selma Sachs, who's here, because we chatted during the break. One of the things that happened to me at Boston State is I lived in the Boston State dormitory. How many knew that Boston State had a dormitory? Nobody. For people who remember Boston State, as you walked out that front gate, there was a building across the street. That was an apartment building, right? I lived in that apartment building. Now, but here's the best part. When I was there as a freshman in 1964, that building was taken over by the state of Massachusetts of eminent domain and eventually became an office building for Boston State College. You remember that? Well, because I was living there, it was eminent domain, they had to pay us to leave. So I need to thank the Commonwealth of Massachusetts that allowed me 1 full year of tuition and living by being in the Boston State dormitory. So what are some of the similarities and differences that as I look around the room, I think all of us can appreciate? The first is that we had, and we heard it mentioned by Tom, some extraordinary faculty members, dedicated faculty members who wanted us to succeed. That's what I see at Stanford as well. That's what I see at UMass Boston. The other thing is that we have a focus on a practical education, driving us to find jobs. In the Stanford Deed of Trust, Stanford actually says, right in its Deed of Trust, to educate students for a practical education. Same thing we had at Boston State. The other things I learned: diligence, dedication, to embrace challenges, to have energy and enthusiasm in whatever you do. And then this duty to society, to mentor and help others. I'm an elementary school teacher by training. Think about that, elementary school teacher. But I learned more by being an elementary school teacher and how to direct people and work with people my entire life. I directed a group, there's 200 people in my group, and I learned more by being an elementary school teacher and how to work with those people than any other thing I've done in my life. So I thank Boston State for giving me that opportunity to learn that. And the other is that our commitment to make the world a better place. That's the education for service. Anybody who went to school at Boston State, that was our motto. And it's something that I believe in firmly. I believe in giving something back. It's paying it forward. It's exactly what you said. And that's the commitment we all should be making. If you're not doing it now, you should be doing it every day. What are you doing to make this world a better place? I've had the opportunity to work with thousands of people around the world. I've worked with 2,000 companies scattered all around the globe. And every day I go to work, I'm doing something to help affect people's lives, to make the community in which they live, the region in which they are, the country in which they reside, and the world a better place. That made my life every day going to work special. And I think as you think about your careers, you've had an opportunity to influence others. So in closing, two things. I'm sorry that Keith Motley is not here. I appreciate Provost Langley being here, but if you've not met Keith, he's quite a character. He has a lot of energy and passion. And he embodies this education for service mission. At Stanford, we have a saying, standing still is like going backwards. Well, UMass Boston is not going backwards, it's going forward. And think about what Keith and others at the school are trying to do. And I encourage, as Tom said, how can you help make the university advance? So I'd encourage you to do that. And the last thing I want to say is that I am really honored and humbled with the award, but more than anything, I'm really honored to be in the same room with people here who believe in what I do, and that's education for service. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Andy. I'm sure that Provost Langley is going to go back and make sure that whatever you owed in rent at that particular location, they can recoup that from you now. And also the fact that you refer to the fact that you had your elementary school training at Boston State College was very helpful to you in managing your 200 people. We won't tell them that. We won't mention that. I'd like to, I know the one thing separating you from the bar is me, but let me just end tonight by picking up on a theme that several members, several recipients picked up on, and that was the paying it forward issue, and thanking people for the opportunity to have attended Boston State College. And the opportunity that might not have been able to have happened because of challenges one might have had in high school or trying to put it all together in your youth, and yet you had the chance as you grew up, the chance to go to college. And I'd like to end with an appropriate message, really, from Benjamin Franklin. After Benjamin Franklin had received a letter thanking him for having done a kindness, he replied, quote, "As to the kindness you mentioned, I wish I could have been of more service to you than I have been. But if I had, the only thanks that I should desire are that you would always be ready to service any other person that might need your assistance. As for my own part, when I'm employed in serving others, I do not look upon myself as conferring favors, but by paying debts." End of quote. Well, tonight, we paid some debts by recognizing and appreciating some of Boston State's College's most distinguished alumni. And as you heard, they're paying back those debts themselves by the support they give others today and have throughout their entire personal and professional lives. So as we get engaged in the holidays ahead, let us thank those who have helped us achieve our personal, academic, and professional goals. And let's pay back those debts by the motto of Boston State, by being service to others. Thank you very much.